On today's show, preseason game number 2 in the books. The Cavs lost this one. That doesn't matter. But what does matter is that the Stars look ready to go for the regular season. We'll talk about all that and so much more on this Friday edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot. And thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today. And thank you to those of you that make Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platform of your choice. And also, if you're watching the show on YouTube, we are there. Do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet just $5. And if your first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. The Cleveland Cavaliers lost their second preseason game to the Chicago Bulls, 119-112, and the score does not matter. As I said in the open, the result of the game does not matter, but what happened during the game does matter. And I think the most important thing to come out of this game is Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell look ready to go for the regular season. Evan Mobley looks very good. He had 21 points, 6 of 10 shooting, made 1 of 2 threes, 5 boards, 4 assists. We're going to talk more about him in the second unit that I think he's going to be playing with coming up in just a little bit today. Donovan Mitchell is where I want to start with today. He had 22 points, 8 of 16 shooting, 3 of 5 from 3, 6 boards, 4 assists. Right now, to me, Donovan Mitchell just looks like somebody that is in complete control of their game. Like, he is somebody that, if we're being truthful here, doesn't need to play super hard in the preseason, right? Like, his job is not on the line. He doesn't have anything to go out and prove. These games for him are very inconsequential. And I don't think he's out there with some sort of postseason intensity. And I think that was evident in a couple of spots. Like, there were a few times where, whether it was out in transition or in the half court, where he gets in the paint, like, you know what, in the regular season or in the postseason, that's probably a dunk. And in preseason, he's laying the ball in because it's the preseason and he should not have to go out there and overexert himself. But I look at that as a good sign because I think that we are going to see a guy this year that's going to be at the peak of his powers. I think that we are going to see the best ever version of Donovan Mitchell that we have ever seen and we ever will see this year. I really do think that this will be the best year of Donovan Mitchell's career. And he looks to me like somebody that is just in complete command. Like, he has control over everything on the floor at all times. Like, there is nobody right now on the Cavs that I just think has a better mastery of the game than what Donovan does at this moment. I think that's a really cool thing to realize and to watch. And yeah, it's the preseason and maybe this isn't the same level of intensity that we'll be getting in less than 2 weeks when the Cavs open up in New York against the Knicks. And it certainly is not the same level of intensity as what we'll be getting when the playoffs roll around in April and May. But what we're getting from Donovan Mitchell is a guy that knows where he's at. And I think he knows what it takes to get to where he wants to go. And I think most importantly, he knows what he needs to do to put himself in those positions. And the way that everyone gets ready for the season is a little bit different, right? Like, some guys feel like they don't need to play in the preseason. And some guys feel like they need to treat the preseason like it's the regular season because they only have one speed and they just have to go, go, go. And I get both sides of that. But I look at Donovan and just say, you know, I think this guy is in a really good place mentally. I think he's in a really good place physically. He looks to me like somebody that is very ready. And if he didn't play in the final 2 preseason games, and I don't know what the plan is, the Cavs play again on Sunday against Boston, and then they play on Tuesday at home against Detroit. I don't know what their plan is for how many minutes those guys are going to play. And there is something, I think, in basketball that there maybe isn't in football. There is in baseball with pitchers, but like I think that in basketball, you do need to kind of ramp guys up. And I think that maybe you want to see guys like Donovan, guys like Evan play more minutes, right? Like, they played 18 minutes on Tuesday night. On Thursday night, Donovan played 25. Evan played 26. So it's still not where they're going to be in the regular season, but maybe they play one more game in the preseason. And you see those guys get to 30 minutes, and maybe the Cavs try and win a game because they still have not won a preseason game under Kenny Atkinson, which at this point I'm starting to find to be pretty funny because we know how good this team is. We obviously know how good they were last year, and the fact that they've lost 6 straight preseason games, the only 6 preseason games that Kenny Atkinson has coached, I find to be just a little bit funny. I don't know if they find it funny, but I certainly do. So Donovan is in a very good spot right now. And I think that is the thing number one to come out of this game is just you look at your star player and say, yeah, he's ready to go. He's exactly where you want him to be. He looks like the guy that you want him to be. And I want to talk about Evan Mobley coming up in a minute, but I think that there was an interesting thing Kenny Atkinson did that is going to lead into a larger Evan Mobley conversation. So I'm going to save that for the second segment. And instead, I want to talk about DeAndre Hunter because I've been saying for a few weeks now about how it's like, I think DeAndre Hunter is going to be a much different player than what he was last year because being a guy that was in a much, much different situation in Atlanta last year, and not just like different in terms of what the goal was, because I don't think yes, athletes are irrationally confident, but I don't think anyone on that Atlanta team in that locker room was sitting there saying, yeah, we can really win the title this year, right? Like that was just not a realistic goal for that team. That team wasn't very good. A realistic goal was finding a way into the playoffs, which they almost did. And I think it can be hard to shift from that to, yes, the realistic goal is the championship, which it was for the Cavs last year. And I also think the play style in Atlanta that DeAndre Hunter was part of was so much different than what he was part of in Cleveland and what he will be part of in Cleveland this year. Because you look at the way the Hawks play, and Trae Young is obviously the centerpiece of all of it. And I think at times that led to, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I watched every DeAndre Hunter possession with Atlanta over the previous 4 years. I'm not even going to say that I sit here and watched all of the Atlanta games last year because I didn't, and I would be lying to you, and I'm not going to lie to you. But a lot of that offense wasn't him moving as much. It wasn't him being as involved. It was Trae Young kind of just finding a way to create for others. And the Cavs offense is much, much different. There's more player movement. I think there's more ball movement. Guys are creating for one another in a way that it kind of is just Trae Young being asked to do so much in Atlanta. And I think that all of those things, now that DeAndre looks so much more comfortable, because I don't think that's debatable. Like I thought he looked more comfortable on Tuesday than he did at any point during the season last year in Cleveland. And then I thought on Thursday, he looked more comfortable than he did on Tuesday. And I expect when the regular season rolls around a week from this upcoming Wednesday, that he's going to look more comfortable than he does now. Like, I just think that is something that's going to continue to grow. So I'm buying as much stock in DeAndre Hunter as I can. I really think that he's going to be a guy this year that we look at and say, man, the Cavs didn't only trade for a good player. They got a player that ended up being better in their situation than he was the previous situation he was in. And I do think the Cavs have done this a couple of times. Like Donovan Mitchell in Utah was a star. Like he was a perennial all-star in the Western Conference. Very, very good player on some very, very good teams. Like he was the best player on some really good Utah teams. But I also think that Donovan has been a much better basketball player in Cleveland than what he was in Utah. And I'm not sitting here trying to say he wasn't great in Utah, because he was, but he wasn't a guy that was finishing 5th or 6th in MVP voting when he was in Utah. That's what he's been in Cleveland. He was an all-star, but he hadn't made an all-NBA team in Utah. He's made 2 of them in Cleveland. Like he has very clearly taken his game to another level since that trade. And I'm not saying that DeAndre Hunter is going to collect those accolades, because I think that's a foolish thing to think. Like I just don't think that he is going to take his game to that sort of level. And I don't think that the Cavs have room for him to take his game to that sort of level too. But I do look at this, and I think he's going to have the best year of his career. I think that his scoring is going to maybe be on par with where it's been in the past, because it's not like he's been a guy that has struggled to score, but I think he's going to impact winning in ways that he hasn't before. And I think that is going to be something that does get noticed, because, you can look at what he did last year when he was in Atlanta. He averaged 19 points a game, which is really good. For the total 17 points a game. Like I would expect he's going to be somewhere around there, which isn't going to be crazy. I do think he will average more than the 14 points per game he averaged as a member of the Cavs last year. But I think that he's going to be so good that we're going to get to the point, and I don't expect DeAndre Hunter to make the All-Star team. I do not think that's going to be a thing that happens. What I do expect is there's going to be a national podcast out there in late January. I don't know what podcast it's going to be, but it's going to be like a national basketball person. They're going to be talking about this with a guest or multiple guests. I don't know what podcast. I don't know who it is. And they're going to be going through the Eastern Conference All-Stars. And part of this is Tyrese Halliburton not available. Jason Tatum not available. Damian Lillard not only not in the conference anymore, but also not available. Like, the pool is a little bit thinner in the East, if we're being honest here. But I think that's the words, quote, I couldn't quite get there, but I really did think about DeAndre Hunter for this last spot. I think someone's going to say that about DeAndre Hunter in January, in early February, about the All-Star game. He's not going to make the team. He probably won't be quite at that level. And if we're also looking at this, like, how likely is it the Cavs are going to have 3 All-Stars back-to-back years? And I'm saying 3 this year because Darius Garland, I don't know how much time he's going to miss. I don't know what he's going to look like. Like, penciling him into an All-Star team this year, probably a little bit unfair expectations for him. But maybe DeAndre makes it. I don't quite see it. But what I do see is he's going to average like 18 a game. It's going to be super efficient. It's going to play good defense. The Cavs are going to be awesome. And someone out there is going to be like, you know what? DeAndre Hunter for an All-Star spot, like, I'm not quite there, but I'm closer than I thought I was going to be. Like, that is the type of conversation I think we'll be having about DeAndre Hunter. And the first 2 preseason games that we've seen have only reinforced that belief that I have and how good he's going to be this year. Now, I mentioned Evan Mobley as well, but Kenny Atkinson made a very subtle change on Thursday night that we haven't seen him do before. We're going to talk about that and what it could mean for Evan Mobley next, right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day, we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. That's what you want to do. You want to get paid for being right. So don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right, because playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown. Maybe he did that night. I don't know. I didn't watch that game at all. Didn't even look at the stats. But you can be in the game. Prize Pick is quick because you can make your lineup in under a minute, and they just added stacks. So if you want to ride with a player, you can select their passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, all in one lineup, right? You can make it simple and easy, and you can be right, and you can get paid because, again, that's what we want to do here. It's also fun to follow other players in the app. You can copy their lineups if maybe you think someone's on a heater or they have a good one, just with one click. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it's not going to count against you. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show on your podcast platform of preference. Please make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcast. So a subtle move that Kenny Atkinson made on Thursday night that he didn't do on Tuesday night and he didn't do at all last year was he changed the pairings for the Cavaliers. Now, what do I mean by that? If you remember back to last year, the Cleveland Cavaliers were very structured in the way that they would substitute, particularly in the first half of games. And most teams are like this. You want to kind of stick to a plan. You want guys to be able to have a routine. You want players to have clarity of when they're going to be in the game, who they're going to be playing with, when they're going to come out of the game. You want that structure. And then you can make adjustments in the second half based upon how the game's going, particular matchups, stuff like that. Like, that is genuinely how these things look. So last year, what would happen is Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley would often be the first 2 guys to sub out for the Cavs, if you think back to it. And that would lead to a lineup that had Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen. Those were the 2 primary guys. Well, on Thursday night, when it came time, because on Tuesday night, Kenny Atkinson did not make subs like that. He subbed 5 guys in at a time. So if you were in the starting lineup, which was, again, on Thursday night, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Tyson, DeAndre Hunter, Jarrett Allen, and Evan Mobley, those 5 guys only played with each other in that game. They did not play with anyone from the bench. The bench players did not play from any starters in Tuesday night's game. Thursday night's game was different. It was treated more by Kenny Atkinson like a real NBA game as far as substitution patterns went. And I think that is an important thing because Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen exited together, something they did not do last year. So I went and looked this up primarily because I wrote about it pretty in depth over at my Substack for this morning. But I looked this up, and Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen, to nobody's surprise, was the most common two-man pairing that the Cavs had last year. They played in 75 games together, which was the number of games that Darius Garland played, because we know Jarrett Allen played all 82 games. And they played just under 2,000 minutes together, and it was very good. The Cavs were around a +9 per 100 possessions when those two were on the floor together. The second most common one was Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. Now, those two only played 62 games together because neither one of them played in all 82. They both missed time, and Darius Garland's 75 games were more than either Evan or Donovan played. So that group naturally played fewer minutes, although it did average the most minutes per game of any two-man group for the Cavs. I would be surprised if that is how the Cavs start this year. And I would be surprised about that for a couple of different reasons. So Darius Garland is not going to be available to start the year. We don't know when he's going to be back. The Cavs have not put a firm timeline on this. All they have said is with Darius out to start the season, without actually saying, hey, Darius Garland out for the first 2 weeks. We don't know what that looks like. We just know because they told us Darius Garland not going to be available opening. That's what we know. So I would expect that Donovan Mitchell at the start of the season is going to be paired with Jarrett Allen. And I think that is a great thing for Evan Mobley, because I think that this is going to give Mobley the opportunity to really take command of the offense in a way that he couldn't before. Because if we've watched Evan in these first two preseason games, I think it's fair to say Evan looks like a guy that is ready to take a step forward. He looks more confident offensively. I think his shot looks a little bit better. I think he looks stronger. I think his balance is a little bit better, which is probably a result of some added strength. And I just think that it's time for him to be the go-to option in some situations. Now, at the end of the day, Donovan is still going to be the go-to option on this team because he's Donovan Mitchell, and he is right now, in my opinion, a top 7 player in the NBA, and Evan Mobley is not quite there yet. Not to say he won't be there by the end of the season, because maybe he will be, but right now that's where Donovan is for me, and Evan is not quite there. But I do think that if there are moments where Evan is out there without Donovan, he really can take command. He can take control. He can be that go-to option where he can go out and he can be a force offensively for 5 or 6 minutes at a time, where he doesn't have Donovan Mitchell out there. Now, part of this is going to be a challenge for Evan because there's going to be more attention by opposing defenses on him than there has been at any point in his career consistently. Of course, a game here, a game there, like that's going to be the case, but consistently, I think there's going to be more defensive attention on him than anything he's faced before. I think that will be a really good challenge for him. And I think that this will be a great way for him to get to start a season, because I would anticipate, knowing how good Evan is, knowing what internal expectations from the Cavs are for Evan this year, knowing what my personal expectations are in seeing what Evan should look like this year, knowing all of those things, I look at this and say, well, he's going to be successful in that situation. And if he's successful in that situation, he's going to build a lot of confidence. And I think that is something that should bode really, really well for him when Darius Garland does get back up to speed. Because then when Darius is back to 100% and playing a full minutes allotment, I think he is a better partner for Jarrett Allen than he is Donovan Mitchell. I think those two work very well together. I think Donovan and Evan work very well together. I think that is something that should go back to the way it was last year. And that's also kind of a, hey, had a lot of success with this last year. Don't know that we should necessarily change things unless we have to. And this would be the case of, well, we kind of have to because Darius Garland is not available. The other reason for doing this is I think it provides a lot more balance to the Cavs offensively if they do split up Donovan and Evan when Darius is not available. Because yes, Jarrett Allen is a very good player, but Jarrett Allen is not somebody that can be his own offense in the way that Donovan can, in the way that Evan can, in the way that Darius can too. He is somebody that needs help in terms of getting the offense going. He needs to be set up by somebody. He's a great pick and roll partner, but he needs the partner there in order to make it work. And the one stat that I found about this that kind of really made it pop for me was the two-man pairing between Darius and Jarrett When that group was on the floor, the Cavs had an assist percentage of 65. So that means that 65% of their made baskets when both Darius and Jarrett were on the floor together were assisted. When Evan and Donovan were on the floor together, 60% of the made baskets were assisted. That 5% might not seem like a lot, but that group of the duos that played 600 or more minutes together for the Cavs, that group had the 5th lowest assist percentage. So the group between Darius and Jarrett is a much more playmaking centric group, where the group with Donovan and Evan is one that can kind of go get your own bucket a little bit more. And I think that is something that having one of those guys, and obviously it's going to be Donovan for floor balance purposes, play with Jarrett. And Donovan is capable of doing all the playmaking stuff because we've seen it before. Go back a couple of years and watch some of the tape from when Evan and Darius were both out for 6 weeks, essentially. When he played with Jarrett, the Cavs looked really awesome. And I would expect that group's going to do really well. But I think ultimately this is going to be a really, really good thing for Evan. And I think that having that extra playmaking with Jarrett will be a really good thing as well. And Evan can be that playmaker too. And I think having Lonzo Ball with him, maybe Craig Porter Jr. with him, like that will bode well for him when that time does come. But I think ultimately this is going to be something that allows Evan Mobley to take that next step up. Now, you might have seen the thing that came out on Thursday. The NBA GM survey is here. The Cavs were mentioned a bunch. I want to run through some of those mentions, talk about what they mean, and we're going to do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. I said I had not checked the score of the NFL game from Thursday night, so we are going to do that right now because I did tell you I like the Giants plus 7.5 in that game. Just thought, you know what? Short week. No way that the Eagles blow them out. Wow, the Giants won that game. 34-17 New York. So I gave out a winner. How about that? It has not been a great start to the NFL season for me. We've been doing much better in college over with our friends at FanDuel, but NFL has not necessarily been a hot spot for me. So that one feels pretty good, but maybe we're going to stick with the NFL because the Cleveland Browns play on Sunday and the Browns are in a bad spot. I actually think the Browns should be mad at the NFL for the hand they've been dealt. The Browns go to London and they face the Vikings, who had been in Europe for 10 days already before that game started. That seems unfair. They lose that game. They come back from London, and traditionally when a team comes back from being in Europe, they get a bye week. I don't know. I think a team that was just in Europe and came back got a bye. Oh yeah, that was the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are coming off of a bye, having to face the Browns, who were just in London. There's no way the Browns win this game. I don't think this game's going to be close. It pains me. I don't want Pittsburgh to win. I don't like saying this, but Steelers minus 5.5. I kind of like taking an alt line here and putting that up to 7.5 or even 9.5. I'm just not sure. And I don't even think Pittsburgh's that good. I just think this is an impossible spot for the Browns. So maybe you feel like me. Maybe you want to fade me. Whatever you want to do, FanDuel is the place to do it. And if you're new at FanDuel right now, place your first $5 bet. And if it hits, $300 in bonus bets are yours. Head to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's show is also brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that helps to make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. That's right. Open Phone is now called Quo. It's the same great business phone system that you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Because every missed call is money left on the table. And when every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications, works right through an app on your phone or on your computer. So no more carrying 2 phones or having to rely on a landline. Quo lets your team share one inbox, one number, and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox, so no customer gets left hanging. Plus, their built-in AI agent is a total game changer because it can answer after-hour calls, capture leads, and keep business moving forward even when you're off the clock. Whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, of course, formerly OpenPhone. So get started for free and get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com. That is quo.com/LockedOnNBA. Again, quo.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first watch today and every day. You can find us on YouTube. And if you are watching, do us a favor right now. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And the annual NBA.com GM survey came out on Thursday, and there were some eye-popping votes in there that I wanted to run through because the Cavs were mentioned quite a bit. And I thought the one that stood out to me was that the Cavs were the second most likely team to win the finals. And this is reflected in the odds at FanDuel. It has kind of become consensus. And I actually do think it's been an interesting thing to watch because I do, in all seriousness, like I check FanDuel rather frequently just to see where things are at as far as, title odds for the Cavs, Eastern Conference odds for the Cavs. And the Cavs have stayed pretty steady to win the title at plus 650, number 2 behind OKC. But they quietly have been their odds to win the East have been getting shorter. If you think back to July when we had this conversation, it was like the Cavs and the Knicks were kind of like both plus 270, or the Cavs moved to plus 260 and the Knicks were plus 270. Right now, the Cavs are plus 200 and the Knicks are plus 380. Like that is, I think, a significant shift. And that's kind of reflected in the survey. Like teams think that, and this is not like me voting, this is NBA executives, and maybe it's not every GM, but it's front office members that are voting here. And it's the fact that they think the Cavs have tied for the second best odds to win the title between it's OKC number 1. They should be no argument there. And then it's the Cavs and Denver, both with 7% of the vote. That I think says a lot about where the Cavs are at right now. Like this is a team that should expect to win the finals this year. They were voted the top team in the Eastern Conference by 63% of the votes. Obviously New York was second, but like that's a wide margin. Getting 63% when it's not a one or the other, because I do think Orlando got votes. I think Atlanta got votes. Like the Knicks were just not voted second in all of these other ones. And to be fair, the Cavs, I think, got some third place votes too. And then as far as individual personnel stuff goes, Donovan Mitchell was voted as the second best shooting guard. Really can't have any issues with that. I think it's a little bit of a projection. Like I think Anthony Edwards has become just a smidge overrated as a basketball player. Like he's obviously awesome. He's a superstar. He's great. He's an all NBA talent, all those things. I just don't know that I would take him over Donovan Mitchell right now. Maybe a year from now, I'm singing a different tune. I'm just not sure that I'm quite there. But Donovan, I think, is if it's not Donovan, it is Ant as the best shooting guard. And I think that there's a gap between him and whoever number 3 is. I will say the thing I didn't like about that, if you look through it, like it said, who's the best shooting guard? And it was, as I mentioned, Anthony Edwards, and then it was Donovan Mitchell. But then it was guys who aren't really shooting guards. And that was the one thing that I just wish would have been a little bit more clear. And, maybe this is such a positionless era in basketball, but Luka Doncic finished behind Donovan Mitchell, and Luka's not a shooting guard. SGA finished behind Donovan Mitchell. SGA is not a shooting guard. Like both of those guys are actually better than Donovan Mitchell. They're also better than Anthony Edwards, but they're not shooting guards. Steph Curry finished behind Donovan Mitchell. I think Donovan and Ant are both better than Steph at this point, but Steph also not really a shooting guard. Like, and maybe Steph has a bigger claim to it than those other two do. But I just look at this and say, I don't know that that's actually the case. And then you go down to best power forward in the NBA. Only 2 guys got votes. Giannis got 93% of the vote, and there should be no argument there. The only other guy to get votes was Evan Mobley. And I think that is a really cool thing. And I think that speaks to where executives expect him to be as this year goes on, and the jump that they expect Evan to get. Donovan Mitchell did get a vote, at least one, as who is your pick to win MVP this year. I think a lot of things would have to go right for the Cavs, and I think a lot of things would have to go wrong for other teams for Donovan Mitchell to win MVP, but I don't think it's like the craziest thing in the world to think that the guy who finished 5th last year, can't jump up to 1st. Not what I would pick, but it's not the craziest thing in the world. Lonzo Ball was the 4th most underrated move voted as by executives, so that's something that I certainly liked at the time. I still like right now, and a lot of people around the league liked as well. Kenny Atkinson also got some love. He was in the others receiving votes category in terms of best in-game adjustments and best motivator. I think that the motivator part certainly goes along with being a player's coach, which is what he is often referred to as, and certainly is a best coach. And he was also voted to have the 2nd best offense in the NBA, only behind Rick Carlisle of the Indiana Pacers. And after what happened in the postseason last year, I cannot push back there even a little bit. Although the Cavs were voted to, by a significant margin, I think, to have the number 1 offense in terms of efficiency in the NBA, they did last year. And I do think it is fair to expect them to have the best offense again this season. And then the one thing that made me laugh, and this is not a Cavs specific thing, but the last question of it was, if you could change one rule, what would it be? And shockingly, the executive said that the apron stuff is too harsh, which it is. And I've not heard from an executive that I have talked to, whether it be in Cleveland or whether it be for a different franchise. I've not heard anybody that works in a front office that said, yeah, we really got it right with this apron stuff. Like, we're really happy with the way this works right now. So that is something that I think most people that work in NBA front offices would really, really like to change. But that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Cavs. So thank you if you made this your first listen. If not, you should make this show your first listen every single day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Please do us a favor. Make sure you're subscribed on your preferable podcast platform. It's the best way to help the show. And if you're watching on YouTube as we get out of here, please do us a favor. Hit the thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I'll be back on Monday talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.